Halliburton double team, shot clock at 4. Nembhard's got to put it up. Step back, his three-pointer. Nembhard knocks the three down. Timeout, Knicks.
Anthony attacks. Hibbert denies him at the rim. Block number 5 for the Pacers center.
Wow, what a play.
Miller for 3, and he got it. Reggie Miller with a clutch tray, and it's 105-102. And a steal. Miller retreats to the three-point line and hits again.
Tie game.
Reggie Miller made a 3, stole the ball, raced behind the three-point line, and hit again.
Look, I know people are like, aren't you worried about going back to New York City and calling a game? No. I've owned this city. I've owned this building. So why would I be worried about walking on out there?
Harper to get it in. Throws it to Ewing. Ewing surrounded. 2 seconds to shoot. He drives. He shoots. He missed. He missed. He missed. We ring the bell, baby. Ding dong. The witch is dead. And the Pacers have won it 97-95. And we're going to Disney World.
Hello, Pacer fans, and welcome back to the Pacers Fever Show, your go-to home for everything Indiana Pacers during this electrifying playoff run. Folks, history has been made for the first time ever. The Indiana Pacers have handed the New York Knicks 2 losses at Madison Square Garden. It's the first time the Knicks have dropped the first 2 at home when having home court advantage in a 7-game playoff series, and that is massive for the Indiana Pacers moving forward. That's right. Blue and gold walk out of the Garden up 2-0, and the momentum squarely in their corner as they head back to Indianapolis for Game 3. Today, we break down Pascal Siakam's monster performance, the masterclass from Rick Carlisle, and what this statement win means for the Indiana Pacers going forward. We'll also dive into the biggest takeaways from this game, what to expect as the series shifts to Gainbridge Fieldhouse, and why this feels like more than just a playoff run, feels like something is special, and it is brewing in this building. So buckle up, Pacers fans. The Pacer Fever Show starts now. The number 3 seed New York Knicks versus the number 4 seed Indiana Pacers. Game 1 was a Pacers win, 138-135, an exciting overtime win as Aaron Nesmith goes off in the fourth quarter and scores 20 points on a miraculous and almost a miracle type shooting night. The magic is definitely there for this Indiana Pacers team, a team of destiny, it seems. And Game 2 last night, Friday, May 23rd, the Indiana Pacers beat the Knicks 114-109, Madison Square Garden, in front of a sellout crowd. And the New York Knicks fans are going home very concerned about the future of this series, possibly the future of their team. And we can talk a little bit about that, what that might mean if the Knicks do decide to kind of reshift and reshape this team, because the Pacers have once again put a team into peril, and they are looking for answers as they head back to Gainbridge Fieldhouse, and a very difficult environment awaits them on Sunday night, as you do have some Pacers racers going on Sunday. So happy race weekend for those that are listening in the Indianapolis area or that are interested in the Indianapolis 500. I'm in Orlando, so I don't get to see all the excitement and buzz around the city that started last night, Friday. And then today at 1 p.m., about an hour away, the Fever will tip off against the New York Liberty at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. And the watch-along party yesterday, they were actually filming the Game 2 watch-along as Gainbridge Fieldhouse opened up for Pacer fans. Pacer fans filled Gainbridge Fieldhouse to watch that game on the Jumbotron. And you could actually see all of the stuff that was ready for the Fever Liberty game that takes place at Gainbridge at 1 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday. So whenever you're listening to this, it is probably currently going on at the moment. So we're hoping that the Fever can pull that out, and we will be covering that and recapping that game after that happens on Saturday, or even leading into Sunday, because we'll also have a preview coming up. So I'm actually going to split these episodes. I'm going to do a recap of Game 2, what it means going forward, what it could possibly mean for the Knicks' future, and what that looks like, just to talk a little bit about what the Pacers have done to yet another team as they are pushing them to the brink of elimination. They have a commanding 2-0 lead. It is not over yet, but the Pacers are looking to seal the deal at home in Game 3 and Game 4 and push it to a sweep, which would be simply amazing, because I think, Minnesota could win that game, Game 3, over in the Western Conference Finals. against OKC. I actually do expect the Wolves to at least get one game on their home floor. It is very difficult to play in Minnesota. I do believe that the Wolves can at least grab one to extend that series. I do think OKC ends up pulling that out. It would be quite a feat, because a team that went down 2-0 in the Eastern Conference Finals or Western Conference Finals, the Conference Finals series, they do not perform very well. It's over 90% that the team advances that goes up 2-0 in a Eastern Conference or Western Conference Finals series. So not looking good for Minnesota, and really not looking good for the New York Knicks. At least Minnesota can go back to their home court and try to figure out how to at least slow down OKC, because OKC is on a historic run from the regular season onward. They have been, I mean, even back to last season and their regular season run that they had last year to get that number 1 seed, even though they got bounced last year in the playoffs in that first round. I feel like OKC has really done what they've needed to do to make themselves the best team in the NBA, and they've proven that time and time again in the postseason that they are an absolute juggernaut. So the Pacers, should they get to the finals, will have a ultimate test to try to win their first NBA title in franchise history. And so we'll see what happens there. But going back to this Pacers Knicks series, this is as worse as it can get for, or as bad as it can get for the New York Knicks. I mean, you go into a series where you felt like there was an easier path to the NBA Finals because you didn't have to go up against a healthy Boston team. You didn't have to really face the Cavs at any point that were healthy, because the Pacers eliminate them. They were the number 1 seed. They would have hosted the game 1 and game 2 against the Knicks. And I think the Cavs probably present more of a challenge defensively for the Knicks than maybe the Pacers would have. But that being said, Pacers eliminate the Cavs. Cavs not completely healthy in that series. They meet up with the Pacers, the New York Knicks do. The Knicks spent all offseason trying to figure out how do they beat the Boston Celtics in an Eastern Conference Finals showdown. Well, they get them in the Eastern Conference semifinals and then get the Pacers in the conference finals. And I think the way that they built themselves actually does help beat the Celtics, but also gives you an advantage against the Pacers, because the Pacers do have smaller wings, and having a Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby defensive outside perimeter defenders kind of thing, they allow you to do things with their length that I think really disrupt what the Pacers are trying to do offensively. And I think you've seen that in game 1 and game 2, where it's taken some time for the Pacers to wear down that lengthy defense. But once they've done that, they've broken free and have now won 2 games in a row at Madison Square Garden. And you can just see that. You can see that at the end of the games, the Knicks' legs are just gone. They're trying to figure out answers to try to defend the Pacers. And in quarter 4 in both of these games, they have pretty much been non-existent defensively. And that's been the key to both of these wins, especially in game 1, where the Pacers just annihilated that Knicks defense. And it's because they can just continue to run bodies out there, and very consistent bodies. I mean, you're talking about 1 through 10, now 1 through 11. I mean, the Pacers are playing their 14th or 15th guy in the rotation in this game. And to say that in a playoff series, in an Eastern Conference Final series, that's simply just unheard of, because you don't often see a guy that was given 2 10-day contracts and then signed for the rest of the season because the Pacers were paper thin at the center position, because James Wiseman, because Ijax go down early in the season. They get Thomas Bryant to alleviate some of that pressure. But forever, the Pacers were searching for a number 3. They had Moses Brown in, and then they find Tony Bradley. And Tony Bradley, I thought in the games that he played in the regular season, when he did get some random spot rotation minutes, I thought he was very consistent. He doesn't seem bothered by the moment. And yes, at times yesterday, he did get a little bit lost in the defensive scheme. But I mean, you've got to expect that because, I mean, Thomas Bryant does too. I mean, I don't think you really lose much as far as, maybe something or the mistakes that are made. That's what I'm trying to get to. I don't think you really lose anything there. I don't think Tony Bradley is going to make more mistakes than Thomas Bryant. I don't think Thomas Bryant's going to make more mistakes than Tony Bradley. I think they're pretty even on that front. And that's what you're really concerned about in the postseason, is making those mental mistakes. Tony Bradley, I thought there was only one thing that he really didn't do that well at one point in the game. 2. There was one where he tried to save an inbound pass and threw it to a Nick. And then there was the first time that he came in, Jalen Brunson. And this is just not playing in a game that was this high intensity, and he hasn't played in much of the games that the Pacers have played. So he's relatively new to this system. He doesn't really know what's going on half the time because he just hasn't played enough. But I thought he looked like he'd been with the team all year. So he looked really good, but he lost Jalen Brunson on a screen one time where he just let Jalen off a pick and roll. He didn't really come out to try to defend Brunson, and Brunson just shot a wide open three over him and drilled it. So getting far ahead of ourselves. But the reason why I was saying this was just that the Pacers' depth, ultimately, you've seen it in game 1 and game 2. And it's funny because while the Knicks, and it's not funny that the Knicks were hurt last year, but it's funny because the Knicks last year looked at this Pacer team, and they've said this multiple times. Josh Hart's commented about it on his podcast with Jalen Brunson. Brunson said it a couple times as well. Thibodeau's even admitted at times. OG Anunoby talked about this after they were bounced from the playoffs last year, that the thing about the Pacers is, and Patrick Beverley's done this with when he was formerly with the Bucks. They've talked about the fact that these Pacers just continue to run at you, and it's exhausting. They're like, man, can these guys just stop? I mean, it's relentless, and nothing changed with it. In fact, they went less defensive. They go out and get Cat. They go out and get a Mikal Bridges, who has good moments defensively, but I think there's a lot of things in his game defensively that are weaknesses. He's not as quick to guard Tyrese Halliburton. I mean, they're using him as the lockdown defender. I mean, I'd honestly, I don't know. And because of the matchups and because of the size and because of what they're trying to do offensively, they don't really want to sit Mikal Bridges. Josh Hart, they're going to have to figure out what's going on with that situation, just because he was a really good player for them last year. But I think the way that they play currently constructed, he's way less effective than he was last year. Last year, I felt like he was a thorn in the side of many. But this year, I just feel like he's just a very subpar player in this league. I mean, offensive rebounds every once in a while, but other than that, he's not really going to give you much offensively. He can't shoot very well. He just doesn't really have that knack to try to create his own shot. He does get to the rim every once in a while, but again, it's more of his hard work, and he has to go to an extreme effort to create anything offensively. I mean, it looks like he's going 110% every time he does score, and he has to. Whereas sometimes you can hit a shot or two, not giving it a complete 110% all the time, and it's go. But that feels like what Josh Hart is. He just has to do that to be creative in the offense. But I don't know. The Knicks just you can just tell it's not a team that is constructed well. I think they're a good regular season team, and the length that Anunoby and Mikal Bridges can offer you at times is good. And OG's a little bit of a difficult matchup for the number 4s that are guarding him. But defensively, I mean, he's been a liability just because, and we saw in this game what Pascal Siakam did to him. I just feel like the Knicks up and down the board are just not great defensive players, even though they were fine defensively in the regular season. They weren't like awful, but you just see in the postseason, you can just see where teams struggle. I mean, your weaknesses are exposed in the postseason, and they've always said that. They said that, if there is a weakness in your team, it will be clear as day in the postseason, because teams will just try to exploit you. And they have 7 games to figure out what that weakness is and where they're going to attack it. And if you've got a coach on the other side like Rick Carlisle, Rick's going to figure it out. And he's going to figure it out. I mean, from quarter to quarter, he's figured it out in every single one of these series. It's been amazing to watch. It really has. Just the masterclass that is going on between Rick Carlisle and Thibodeau. I mean, just a different level of coaches. And you start to get into that. I think you could start to get in that argument of like, Tom Thibodeau's a good coach, but he's not great. And to be honest with you, it's kind of that same storyline that's followed Doc Rivers, where they've had successful seasons. At least Doc's won a championship. But I think there's this narrative that surrounds both of them that I think that you're fooled by the amount of praise that they've received at times. Thibodeau received a lot of praise for his time with the Bulls, but the Bulls, because of Derrick Rose getting hurt, they never reached the mountaintop. But if you just look at the two of them, while they've done things that are good in coaching teams, I just feel like there is a lack of understanding that is very detrimental to what they're trying to do coaching wise. Where Rick Carlisle is a champion, he's done it with a team that probably shouldn't have won the championship against that Miami Heat team. And now he's doing it again with the Pacers, but he's all about team basketball. And I think that's another thing that we can really talk to when opening up this episode. So, it's very frustrating as a Pacer fan when you're on social media. I mean, we're never going to get our respect, and maybe I should just stop expecting people to give us respect, because here's what you have to know about the Pacers. Or I guess this is what you have to be to know the Pacers and why the Pacers are successful. And I'm not trying to sound obnoxious. I'm not trying to sound like uptight or anything like that, or that we're a know-it-all kind of fan. But there's a really good, and also think about it like this: like, those other teams aren't watching the Pacers all season long. They're only getting the little snippets that they see in the postseason. And the only thing is that they've ever really have seen, and it's true, we have played very injured teams. I think that's where they get off saying, well, the Pacers have only beat injured teams. Well, now this Knicks team is fully healthy, but now the narrative is now switched to the Pacers aren't beating this Knicks team. The Knicks team is gift wrapping this series to the Pacers. But I think what you've got to understand as a Pacers fan is that, and again, I'm not trying to sound pretentious or anything like that, but those fan bases don't understand basketball like we do, right? Like, and the fans that do, they realize game. The fans that understand basketball understand how good the Pacers are. Ask the Celtics fans, a fan base that is very knowledgeable about their basketball team, that go to all their games, that watch all their games. Whereas you've got Knicks fans that are just as washy as their celebrities are when watching the Knicks. I mean, you've got it's always funny when they talk to some of these celebrities about basketball, and I love Ben Stiller, but they were asking Ben Stiller. He doesn't know anything about basketball. Like, he might go to games and watch them play, but he doesn't really know anything about it. Like, you can just tell by the way they talk about basketball. They don't know anything about basketball. Like, there's no understanding. So when it's funny because they're like, who is this Neesmith guy? If you watch Aaron Neesmith, you would know who he is and what he does and what he provides. If you watched him at Vanderbilt, he's a killer. He's a stone cold killer. Andrew Nembhard, same thing. Gonzaga, stone cold, right? Ice in his veins. Miles Turner's been around forever. Figure that out, right? Pascal Siakam has done this to many teams, including the Knicks. He has dropped 50-some points in Madison Square Garden before. He's a champion. Tyrese Halliburton is, and this is, again, the funniest part is people always look at Tyrese and say, well, he doesn't put up the stats like a Shea, right? So he could never be that kind of guy. Well, he is that guy. He just does it in different ways. And you don't really understand it unless you understand basketball. So I would say the people that don't understand how good the Pacers are not, their basketball IQ is not as high. Because if you do understand basketball, you now understand why the Pacers are a good team, because all you have to do is watch them and go, I get it. Ball movement. They make great adjustments. They have one of the best coaches in the NBA. They've got a NBA All-Star in Pascal Siakam. They have another one in Tyrese Halliburton. They have an All-NBA player in Tyrese Halliburton who that is voted on by people who know the game, that are knowledgeable about the game. They understand game when they see it, and that is Tyrese Halliburton. So again, I just get really frustrated just because they're never going to give us our respect. And I know people on Twitter, and I actually had an interaction with one of the followers yesterday that was like, don't worry about it. Just we'll do what we need to do. Let the game speak for itself. But it is frustrating. I mean, it's really annoying because you just hear it all the time. The Pacers don't deserve this. The Pacers have been gifted things that, go back and look at their history. The Pacers have gone through horrible stretches of play. And by horrible, I mean not making the playoffs or just barely sneaking into the playoffs, not really being that competitive. And then in the eras that they have been, like a Reggie Miller, like a Paul George, Victor Oladipo, those have ended in just horrible, horrible things. And probably, you look at those three things that have happened. So you talk about Malice in the Palace when they had the best team, I think, in that season. Probably win a championship with Steven Jackson and Artest, Jermaine O'Neal, Reggie Miller. Like, that was a really good team that should have won a championship. You look at Paul George, who runs into LeBron James, who had a good chance in that series to win. He won, a lot of games with Indiana. They went in as the number one seed in I think it was 2014 when that was. So that era ends with Paul George, compound fracture in his leg, and then he is shipped off to OKC. You bring in Victor Oladipo and Domantas Sabonis, and Vic's time ends with injuries, constantly plagued by that. They go in the bubble with TJ Warren, like the fractured of that team, and Malcolm Brogdon. And then it's time for this rebuild. They trade and flip Domantas Sabonis for Tyrese Halliburton, and now it's this new era of Tyrese. And then you go out and get Pascal Siakam because you realize just how good Tyrese Halliburton is. I think what people forget to realize is that Pacer team went all the way through that in-season tournament without Pascal Siakam and almost won that in-season tournament. Now, you'll have people say that the teams don't take it that seriously, but look back at the winners, look back at the teams that have won that. They were very good in those seasons. The Lakers coming off a very good season and making a run through that NBA in-season tournament, and playoff environment in that final game in Vegas against the Lakers, right? So, and then the Bucks. So it's like, I think you've got to understand just how much this Pacer team has been through to say they've been gifted this playoffs or these last. We deserve it. Like, leave us alone. We've gone through so much that you have not been through, right? Cleveland, you've had LeBron James. He came back. He won a championship for you, right? Knicks fans, yeah, I get it. Like, I can see why you're frustrated. You never win. You're just like us, except you have the money to spend. And you never spent it very well, and we've always knocked you out of the playoffs when it mattered. So I get that. But then, you talk about the Cavs, right? You talk about the Bucks. The Bucks have won a championship. They had Chris Middleton, right? But now they're imploding. Giannis wants to leave. You've had your chances, right? Like, those are you've both won championships. Leave us alone. We didn't do anything to you, except knock you out of the playoffs. But again, I just get so frustrated because it's always like, well, if we were healthy, well, you're not. And that's a part of building a team too, is you got to have a healthy team, a team that can stay healthy throughout the season. Like, that's the goal, right? You have to build around people that are consistent, that are going to stay healthy. I can name players out there that I know I'm not going to build a team around because they can't stay healthy. I can name guys in the postseason that won't really show up because they're never healthy. You look at this, right? Joel Embiid never made an Eastern Conference Finals. He's never healthy. Why would I build a team around him? Karl Anthony Towns, he's done this so many times where he's been in places and they just implode because he can't play defense. So there's so mmany things that go into this idea where the Pacers have built it right. They've built it the right way. They've got competitors. They got dogs. So I'm off my soapbox now. It's so frustrating because the Pacers are never going to get their respect. And I think the only way you're going to gain respect is if somehow they get to the NBA Finals and beat OKC, a healthy OKC team. Then I think, which is funny because OKC is the exact same. They're just on the other side of the conference, right? OKC team playing. They actually have a superstar. I would say that Tyrese is a superstar level player, but he's not going to score like Shai Gilgeous, right? Shai's the top player in this league, obviously. I don't think Tyrese is there, but Tyrese has a better supporting cast, I think. I think there are holes in the OKC team. I think that 1 through 10, I think that the Pacers, you can make the argument as to why they're the better team. But OKC has been on a magical run. They've gotten production from different guys, but there has been a lot of role players that have struggled in their series against Denver, right? So I think it'll be an interesting matchup, but that's the only way that we're going to be respected in this league is if somehow we take down those giants, because they are giants right now. I'll give OKC there. The OKC, I'm leaning towards them winning the NBA Finals, no matter who they go up against. But we'll see. Things change. Things are different. All the Pacers would have to do is go in and steal one in OKC, and I've got the utmost confidence that the Pacers, if they can steal just one game in Oklahoma City, that they can win that series. But it's very tough to win on the road against OKC. Game 2 recap. I want to go through some of the numbers because with this 2-0 lead, there's a lot of things that I want to mention that are very interesting to me that this was all over Twitter yesterday. This was great. A bunch of coverage for the Pacers, but a lot of great notes here. So bear with me. There's a lot of them. Pacers get a big game for Pascal Siakam to take a 2-0 lead against the Knicks. Again, the first time in history where the Knicks have dropped the first 2 games at Madison Square Garden when having home court advantage. That's massive. It's funny. I was just reading something. The Knicks had never lost 3 straight home games at Madison Square Garden. They've now done that, but that was against the Boston or that was against Boston. Sorry, they lost 3 straight games at home against Boston. It was like a 79-year run where they had not lost 3 postseason games in a row in Madison Square Garden, but they've now done that against Boston. But if you go back to last year, the Pacers have also beaten the New York Knicks 3 straight times at Madison Square Garden. You go back to Game 7 of last year, and now Games 1 and 2 in the Garden, and actually have a really good chance, I think, in Game 5 if it gets to Game 5. I think the Knicks might get one at Gainbridge. I don't know. Like, I don't know if they're desperate enough. Maybe the Pacers sweep them. It would be lovely to sweep them, but I'd still expect this to maybe go 5. It would be funny if the Pacers would go on to win 4 straight games at Madison Square Garden. Like, the fact that the Knicks, and the Knicks have not been good at home. They've got a losing record at home in these playoffs. I think they're like 6-7 or something like that. So not great for the Knicks. This was the 50th playoff meeting between these rivals. The Pacers lead the series 28 games to 22. So they are 28-2 against the Knicks all since 1993. More closely resembled their defensive battles of 1990s than the shootout of 2 nights earlier. Last night's game really did. I mean, it was sloppy. Like, it was a lot of physicality and defending and rebounding. Like, it got stuck in the trenches, which actually favors the Knicks more. But the Pacers were able to hold on and really impose their will in that fourth quarter. NBA teams that go up 2-0 with both being road wins multiple times in a postseason. The Houston Rockets, who won an NBA title in 1995, and the 2025 Indiana Pacers. The Pacers have won their Game 1 and Game 2 in the last 2 series on the road against the Cavs and against the Knicks. It's the second team in NBA history that's done that. And that's a really good company if you're thinking about the way that Rockets team ended 30 years ago. The Rockets did the same thing and won an NBA title. So that's good for the Pacers. That's some good news. The Pacers become the first team in NBA history to have all 5 starters make a 3, record a steal, and not commit more than 2 turnovers in a single game. That's incredible. But again, we've talked about this multiple times. The Pacers just don't turn the ball over, which is great. I mean, forever, the Pacers have always had trouble with turnovers, even in the Paul George era. They've just not been a team that's really possession's not really been a big thing for a good thing for the Pacers. It's always been a negative. It's always 13 to 14 turnovers, and you try to live with that. But not this team. This is the first time in the Knicks history that they've lost 5 home games in a single postseason. Teams to win a best-of-7 series after losing first 2 games at home: the Clippers versus the Mavs in 2021 in round 1, the Celtics versus the Bulls in 2017 in round 1, the Mavs versus the Rockets in 2005 in round 1, the Rockets versus the Suns in 1994 round 2, and then the Lakers versus the Warriors in 1969 Western semifinals. The Indiana Pacers are 44-16 since January. I think the only other team, I saw somebody had tweeted it, Young Simba, I think. He tweeted that the Pacers and OKC are the only 2 teams to have 50-plus wins since the in-season tournament. No NBA team has ever lost the first 2 games at home and come back to win the series in the conference finals. The Pacers have scored 126.6 points per 100 possessions, which would be the second best mark for any team in the conference finals or NBA finals in the 29 years that we've had play-by-play data. The Indiana offense has been at its best when its best has been needed. When the Pacers come back from the Pacers have come back from 17 points down in Game 1. They scored an incredible 31 points on their final 13 possessions of regulation in Game 1. And in Game 2, which was a really close game, they scored 42 points on their final 27 possessions. It's called elite. People, and I did see this on Twitter or on X, they were like, well, it's because the Knicks can't play defense. Well, duh. I mean, that's pretty obvious. But let's think about this. Karl Anthony Towns sat for most of that quarter in the fourth quarter when the Pacers were on one of those runs. The Knicks had their best defensive lineup out there. I mean, obviously, Jalen Brunson is a huge liability, but the other 4 are not slouches when it comes to defending teams. So they did this with the Knicks' best shot defensively, and they've done this with the Knicks' best shot defensively. So I don't want to hear the excuses of like, well, the Knicks can't play deep. No, that unit that they have out there is a really good defensive unit. I think they keep teams under that 100 mark per points per possession. I think it was like 94 with Mitchell Robinson in. So in place of Cat, like they are a really good defensive team when Cat is not out there. So I don't want to hear that crap. Like that's wrong. So it's funny whenever Knicks fans. I mean, Knicks fans they're looking for answers right now. It's sad for them. I will say that it is a very sad time because we've been there. We've tried to figure out how do we stop Dwayne Wade and LeBron and Chris Bosh from hurting us, and how do we stop LeBron from hurting us. It's always LeBron, right? Last year was the Celtics. Like, how do we stop this onslaught? But again, I love the excuses because teams cannot figure out why the Pacers are a good team. It's one of my favorite things. It's my favorite pastime right now is to listen to ESPN because they're all Knicks fans, or listen to Knicks podcasts or Knicks TikTokers, Knicks TikTokers, or even Cavs fans, Bucks fans, Pistons fans. They're all trying to figure it out. I think the Pistons understand it better because they're kind of built similarly to the Pacers. They're a little bit more defensive minded, but I would say that they're much more into the team ball aspect of the game and style of play. But let's talk about the moments in game 2, and then we'll talk about Pascal Siakam. So if you're not over on the YouTube, we have a rundown. That was all about the commanding 2-0 lead and what that means. Just some really cool stats and numbers for the Pacers heading into game 3. But we'll get into Pascal Siakam very soon, and then we're going to talk about a couple other things that were just sensational from game 2. But the big moments: Pacers race out to a 19-9 lead, but the Knicks quickly caught them when Robinson and Deuce McBride enter the game. Again, like I said, when Deuce and Robinson are playing, that's a totally different game. And you can't start both of them. I mean, you could, but that would require taking out probably Mikal Bridges and Josh Hart. Whereas if Robinson starts, that's only removing Josh Hart from the starting lineup. But I think the Knicks are going to try to get desperate because it's desperation time. And I think Mitchell Robinson is the answer there. When he and Towns play, they're like a plus 24 or something like that in the postseason. So that's what I would do if I'm Tibbs. I would remove Josh Hart just because he's just not adding anything in that starting unit. And he'd actually be, I think, a pretty good bench unit type player. He's one of those guys that I think you don't really lose much if he's going in between rotations. He's somebody that I think could be actually more effective playing against the Pacers bench than he is against the Pacers starters. But yeah, you can't start both of them, and I think that's where it's difficult for the Knicks, because when you can't remove the elephant in the room and Jalen Brunson can't guard anything, that becomes very difficult for the Knicks. Indiana picked up where it left off in game 1, firing all cylinders. Pascal Siakam scored 16 points on 6 of 9 shooting. The Pacers shot out to an early 10-point lead thanks to 61% shooting, as the Knicks defense let the Pacers do whatever they wanted in the paint. But then the Knicks, in the Knicks' first 11 points came from OG Anunoby and Jalen Brunson. Josh Hart gets into early foul trouble with 2 fouls in the first 7 minutes, and then the Knicks go on a 10-0 run once that lineup shifts over to Mitchell Robinson and Deuce. Tyrese Halliburton went scoreless in 10 minutes of action, and then the Pacers went nearly 6 minutes without a field goal to end that first quarter. They were awful in that first quarter besides Pascal Siakam. I mean, everybody was struggling. I mean, there was a point where I thought Pascal was going to score 80 points because he had to, but we eventually get some production from different people. But a really tough start for the Pacers starters, but they were right in the game. And I would say that even through the second quarter, and the second quarter saw 8 lead changes. The Knicks are taking, took a modest 3-point lead into the half at 52-49. Knicks Karl Anthony Towns lifted New York early in the quarter, scoring all 12 of his points in that period. He was not good in that first quarter. He airballed his first shot. It was crazy. Jalen Brunson led all Knicks with 17 on 6 of 7 shooting in that first half. One area where the Knicks were dominating was the offensive glass. Mitchell Robinson had 3 offensive boards. Pacers were really struggling to get him off the glass. And then Miles Turner and Thomas Bryant get into foul trouble. Thomas Bryant actually hurt his hand. I don't know what happened. I didn't see what happened, but he came up like in serious pain. And then throughout the game, there was it looked like a towel with ice maybe was wrapped around his hand, and he didn't play the rest of the game. So, and we'll talk about what that meant and who steps in that spot, because it was huge. But then it was Tyrese Halliburton who scores 2 points in the first half, and he starts to get those overrated chants. James Johnson standing over the bench like, come on, keep going. If you're going to learn anything, do not poke the bear. Tyrese is much better when you're poking at him. And I think the Knicks fans should be the first to know that, because last year he did that same thing in Game 7 where they kept poking at him, guy on the sideline talking to him, and Tyrese went nuclear. And then in Game 1, he also was really good. So maybe don't do that. So you saw how that happened with the Cavs too. The Cavs learned their lesson. Now you need to learn yours. But yeah, he wasn't good, Tyrese, through the first couple of quarters. And then you could start to see it when he hit that floater. He started to get way more engaged. So when he hits his shot, he starts to really come on. And so that's why I'm always like, man, if I'm Rick, first couple of plays, I got that Tyrese Halliburton play where you just get him a really wide open layup or wide open look or easy, trot to the glass. Like if you're throwing a double screen or just something that works a lot of the time, I think you got to run that play and get him involved, because once he sees one go through, he really starts to get confident. But yeah, that started to take the pressure off. He scores 10 points in the third quarter, which is really good because Pascal Siakam needed some help, and he finally gets it from Tyrese in that third quarter, takes the pressure off. Halliburton has 8 assists and 6 rebounds in the third. Brunson leads New York at the end of the third with 24 points. It's tied at 81 after the three. After 3. The Pacers open the fourth with a 13-4 run to move ahead 94-85 on a Pascal Siakam 3 with 9:17 remaining. They would quickly push the margin back to around there every time the Knicks would gain any kind of momentum. There's times where they'd get it down to 5, and then the Pacers go on their run. Pascal Siakam getting fouled, going to the line, and one's big play against Mitchell Robinson. I can remember he gets an and one, missed the free throw, but big and one. Pacers just kept getting it back to that 8-10, 8-10, 8-10. And then it's not until later in the game that the Knicks start to go on their run. And the Pacers had pushed it to 110-100 after a basket by Siakam with 2:45 left to play. The Knicks go on to score 9 straight to make it 110-109. Here comes their final punch on Josh Hart's basket with 14 seconds to go. And then Aaron Nesmith is fouled. He makes 2 nothing but net free throws. He's our best free throw shooter. I mean, the guy's ice, I guess, when it's big shots, and especially down the line. I mean, we've seen that throughout the season where that's who they get the ball to when they need free throws. And can I say, the Pacers almost shot themselves in the foot. They missed way too many free throws. They were not good from the three-point line tonight. It was a disaster, as some would say. They shot 71%. They missed 6 free throws. I mean, you got to cut that in half at least. So those are big points, and I thought that was going to cost them. And Reggie kept saying, like, this is going to cost them, and it almost did. I mean, the Knicks were in this because of how much the Pacers missed free throws. But then Brunson comes down after here's the other thing. Okay, so there's 14 seconds left. Or no, sorry. There's 14 seconds left because Hart makes that, then Aaron Nesmith gets fouled. And so the final possession, Jalen Brunson, he takes off. And I get this sort of, like, Nesmith makes the 2 threes, and you don't really want the defense to be set. So the best thing to do after the make was to get out and run, because the Pacers defense is trying to figure out how to defend him. And, there was, Thibodeau said basically that it was a better chance that the Knicks score off of the ability of the Pacers not to be able to get set and to be able to just go in transition, try to score off that make. And that the assignments would have been worse for the Knicks had they called a timeout because they had one timeout left. You call a timeout, you get the ball at half court, you set up your offense, you set up that shot, you set up the look, right? I think you do that 9 times out of 10, maybe 10 times out of 10. There's only a couple of players where I'd argue where that makes sense. I think Steph Curry would be the exception there. Let him do it because he can hit those shots. I mean, Jalen Brunson isn't hitting 30-foot three-pointers very often. And that's where he takes it from, basically. Almost the logo. Because he felt like he had some space between he and Neesmith as Neesmith is backpedaling. Because I think Neesmith thought, well, he's going to try to get at least closer. But Brunson fires away and ends up clanking off the rim. Miles Turner gets the rebound and it's over. Which is the biggest rebound in Miles Turner's career. Like, he tips it up a couple times and Josh Hart's trying to get it away from him and he's tipping it over him like, oh no. And it did look, I was like, oh no, not this. Like, they're going to get an offensive rebound, hit a three or something stupid. But they didn't. Turner gets that rebound. But my thing is like, why not take the time out there? Because then you can figure out, okay, Brunson's going to have Neesmith, yes, but we can screen him. And there was enough time to get a really good shot off to get Brunson into a screen or an open three against a player that he shoots better against, like a Nemhard or Tyrese Halliburton. So I don't know what the thinking was. I mean, I guess I get the understanding of Thibodeau, but I think 9 times out of 10, maybe 10 times out of 10, again, depending on the player. And I'm not sure there's many players out there except for Steph. Maybe Tatum. I don't know. Like, who else would you trust in that kind of situation? I guess Jalen Brunson would be one of those guys, but it was just not a good. I don't think it was that good of a look. Like, it was really far out. It's hard to shoot on the run like that, like running downhill. You usually do exactly what Jalen Brunson did. You miss it long because your momentum is taking you towards the basket. So I don't think that was a very good idea, but I don't know. Tibbs thought it was, which is why I question, just the caliber of coach that he is at times, because he does some really weird things. But yeah, that was it. Pacers did exactly what they're supposed to do in the fourth quarter, and they got some great performances in the fourth quarter, and we'll talk about that after I talk about some other things. Pascal Siakam was sensational in this game. I think that's what Marv Albert used to say a ton. Sensational. He had 39 points on 15 of 23 shooting, 3 of 5 from 3, or 3 of 5 from 3. And the ones he made, I mean, you could hear the net on the mic. Like, they were pure. And he was excellent tonight. Defensively, too, he caused Anunoby all sorts of problems. He kept deflecting the ball away from Anunoby and causing all sorts of problems on the defensive end. And really, I thought played a complete game. He made some really nice passes as well. But again, that was a huge game for Pascal. And without his first quarter, the Pacers lose this game. So he was big. He was a plus 16. And I thought really led the charge and stayed hot until some of the other Pacers players starting to heat up a little bit more. So he was really big, and probably the biggest game that we've had from Pascal in his time here. He tied Reggie Miller for the most postseason points by any Pacer in franchise history with 39. Thought he was going to get more than he could have had more. Man, he had a free throw. Dang, he could have had 40. I just thought about that. But the Pacers, again, those possessions late. I mean, for the Pacers to be down 17 in game one and then score 31 points on their final 13 possessions and then 42 on their final 27 possessions, like, that's unheard of. And the Pacers just stomp on the gas in the fourth quarter, which is huge in growth that they've had this season. I mean, their growth, it's fun to watch because you can see it game by game. This team getting more confident with more growth, with more experience. It just oozes from every single one of them. And it's amazing to watch. It really is. That's why I'm really interested to see if they can get to that NBA Finals matchup against OKC, what that difference looks like, because the Pacers have been here. They've been in these intense games where OKC's really not been tested too much except for that Denver series. So, and throughout the season, like, they've not really had a big test. And I think the Pacers would be a huge test for them. Pascal Siakam, again, led the Pacers in 39 points, 15 to 23 shooting. The Knicks got a really good offensive game from Jalen Brunson. Can I just say that fadeaway thing that he does, it's like a layup. I'm like, every time he shoots it, I'm like, well, that's going in. I think he shoots like 100% on those stupid fadeaway. It makes me so mad watching it because it's like, it looks easier to defend, but it just like the Pacers just come up short and can't get enough of like length out there to him. I'll tell you who's really good at defending it though, and it's shocking. Well, not too shocking because if you're a Pacer fan, you know, but I think Ben Shepherd is really good at, because I think he's lengthier than Nemhard. His arms seem longer than Neesmith's, and this sounds weird, but like Ben Shepherd's like vertical, like what do you call it? What do you when you oh gosh, I'm like blanking on a word here. His spurt ability, I guess you could say, his ability to get off the floor quickly and to get out to that hand that he's shooting with his left hand. I think he's a little bit further out when he's able to jump because he jumps quickly. He's able to get off the floor very quickly compared to like Neesmith can, and so can Nemhard, but like Nemhard's not as long. And then Neesmith is not as explosive, I don't think, as Ben can be at times. So, yeah, I really did like the way that Ben Shepherd guards Jalen. Like, I felt like he struggled with Ben on him. And Ben doesn't bite on those little head fake things that he does all the time. Another key note here, though, that I want to make, because I couldn't really figure out where to put this, but well, I guess you can put, you know what, I'll leave that for takeaways from game 3 because that's coming up on the rundown. So let's talk about some of the other players that had a huge impact, because while Pascal Siakam pretty much led the Pacers in everything they were doing, they got some good contributions later in the game from Tyrese Halliburton, from Miles Turner, and we'll talk about Turner, from Neesmith and Nemhard both had 12. But they had some great performances off the bench. And I didn't really include TJ, and I feel bad I should have included TJ on the rundown, but I'll include him here. TJ McConnell was really good tonight. 5 of 8, or last night. He was really good. 5 of 8 from the field, 62%. Really, the only thing that I'll critique him about, once again, it's happened. It happens all the time in the postseason. There's one time in the postseason, every game it seems, where TJ McConnell breaks free and is as wide open as he could possibly be on the 3-point line, and he cranks one up, and they're close usually, but they don't go in. He's like the only guard I've ever seen that can't hit threes consistently. And last year in the postseason, he actually hit quite a few. He's actually better at home. I have noticed that he hits more threes when they're at home that he gets, he's standing wide open. And there will be a game where he'll hit 2 or 3 big threes. It's coming. I just don't know when it'll be. So I'm kind of excited to see when that'll happen, because he'll usually hit 1 or 2, and it's usually a big one because they just don't go out to guard him because they're like, yeah, good luck. But he was great. 10 points, 4 assists. Really, at times, just put their defense in the blender, the Knicks. He gets those screens about 40 feet away from the basket, and Mitchell Robinson had to come out because Toppin kept coming out there to screen. And there's this really good like slip pick that they do where they have Toppin come out and Shepherd, and it's kind of like this double screen, but Shepherd ends up slipping the pick. And because of the mismatch, and because of the proximity, there's a lot of rotating that the Knicks have to do. There's 3 players in that vicinity that kind of try to figure out, okay, who, and the Knicks really struggle communication. Like, they are not a good communicating team defensively. And a lot of that deals with Brunson not being a defender. And honestly, like I said, there's times where Bridges just makes a lot of mistakes, and he and Robinson run into each other. And it's just, they're not good collectively as a unit defensively, which is something that I think we don't talk about enough. Is you can have good defenders, but if you're not, that are good one-on-one defenders, but when you're talking about team defending, this Knicks team is not a good defensive team. And when it comes to playing together as a unit and communicating, they struggle. And the Pacers just, with all those actions, put them in an absolute blender. And TJ McConnell is that, because he just takes off running towards the rim. And there was a couple times where he hit Ben Shepherd for 3, one time where Shepherd kind of slips that pick, goes to the top of the arc, hits it, right? And then there was one time where Ben Shepherd gets it, and because Mitchell Robinson got confused, he starts to fly out on Ben Shepherd because they didn't know who was supposed to pick up who, and they leave Pascal Siakam wide open. And what a pass. Like, there's 2 guys trying to defend. It was Brunson and Mitchell, like, kind of, it almost looked like a zone they were running because of how bad they got mismatched and mixed up. They were both standing at the top of the arc trying to guard Shepherd, and Shepherd's like, well, why are you both out here? And he looks over Mitch, and he throws it just out of his reach, and Siakam, like, it's a perfect pass by Ben to Pascal, and it was great. So Ben Shepherd, TJ McConnell. I mean, Ben, 6 points, hit 2 huge threes. Ben Shepherd's back to where now when he shoots threes, I'm like, nope, that's in. He was a +8. He now, last postseason, he led the Pacers in plus minus. That's crazy stat. That's a lot of fun. And this year, I mean, this postseason, he's starting to get that confidence back. And that is huge because Benedict Mathurin has been a non-factor. Benedict Mathurin was a -12. And I'd say Toppin's really struggled in this series too. I mean, he's been good offensive boards, but, he's not really been that added, plus that the Pacers usually get from Obi. And I think this is a tough matchup for him just because of the size of the Knicks when they go to that bench. And I think when Odin and Obi or Mitchell guard him, he struggles, in Towns too. I do think Obi's been better defensively in this series and on the boards, but yeah, he's just not added much. I think an OKC series would be beneficial for Obi. I think there's a lot of players that would benefit because OKC is a good team, defensive team, but I think just the length of the Knicks really bugs the Pacers with those wing players and that, OG. And I don't know, it's just kind of a weird match. Miles too. Like, this has been a really tough matchup for Miles. And then last but certainly not least, let's talk about Tony Bradley. So Tony Bradley gets 8 minutes. He comes in. What was that? I think it was the third. I can't remember if it was the end of the second or beginning of the third. But Tony Bradley checks in, right? Actually, you know what? I can pull it up really quick because I've got it here where the quarters are broken up. I think it was the third when he came in. Yeah, it was. It was the third. No. Second. End of the second. That's right. End of the second. He gets 3 minutes and 60 seconds in the second quarter. And Tony Bradley, if you're not a Pacer fan, you'd be like, who in the world is that? He is so solid. Like, he isn't again, like I said in the top of the show, he was unbothered. He had the one defensive lapse sort of against Jalen Brunson, but you kind of understand that it was a tough mismatch. And Brunson took advantage of it, hits a wide open 3 because Bradley didn't go out and show off of the screen. But other than that, I mean, there was one time Brunson he very good on his left hand, goes up against Bradley to try to lay it up because Bradley's length and his size, he just he kind of knocked Brunson out, and Brunson's like, what in the world is that? And he tries to throw it up and completely missed it. A pretty easy shot, like a 6 foot, 8 foot shot that he tried to throw up against Bradley. And Bradley's like, nope. Because of his length, he changed the shot. But man, he did so many things well. And then the biggest difference was you can tell that Mitchell Robinson had a very difficult time when Tony Bradley was in. I mean, there was even one time Mitchell almost gets an offensive rebound and Bradley's just a little bit longer in his arms and he tips it out away from Mitchell. And there were 3 times where he put him under the rim. So I think going forward, you match Mitchell Robinson quite a bit with, and he's going to play a lot in this next game because I think they'll move into the starting rotation. But I think Thomas Bryant is relegated to the bench, and I think Tony Bradley's now who you rely on, especially at home. Like, role players are going to play better. The energy that Tony Bradley's going to give, and just how he's just unfazed. He played at North Carolina, so he's used to some of these big moments, and I think that's something that's not taken into consideration when you think about some of these guys that come in randomly. He's played in big moments at UNC. And he's well coached. He's smart. He's very, very smart. Oh, there's a couple times too, running down the court in the third quarter where he slipped screen one time. I think it was Toppin. Toppin was running. Yeah, I think it was Toppin running out, and he ends up getting a layup because Tony Bradley runs in between he and I forget who was defending him. I think it was OG at the time. And he runs in between the two of them and he knocks OG out to where Toppin has an easy layup. And then there's another time where he's running in front of Mitchell Robinson, and he realizes that he's in front of him. And I think it was a TJ McConnell run out. And he knew that Mitchell was going to try to go block the shot at the rim. And he at half court, he steps in front of him and he slows down. Like he just slows his body down. And Mitchell gets stuck behind him and he's like, oh, shoot. And then it's an easy layup. And it was twice that he did it in a span of 2 or 3 minutes. It was, if you're not paying attention to it, go back and look at it. It was really good. I think it's the third quarter. He does it twice, where he just kind of plucks off the defender by just running. It was high IQ. It was his wherewithal. And to come in ready like he did, and with Ben Shepherd, same thing. When they come in and they haven't really played much, it's this is genius. Rick Carlisle and that's where we can talk about Rick here, is just playing chess, and the rest of the league is playing checkers with him, because Carlisle, again, rising up the all-time leaderboard and postseason lore. He is one of the top coaches that's ever coached this game, and he continues to throw the right curveballs. There was multiple plays where he had Miles Turner come off a pick and roll, and then also when they do that 5-out offense where Turner's oftentimes uses a screener, they switch it up and go with one of the guards screening at the top and then leave Miles in the corner, and that's when Miles hit 2 of his big dagger threes. Tyrese Halliburton breaking down and hitting Miles Turner in that fourth quarter. He hits a big 3 to go up 6. It's because Rick's like, you know what? They've seen that action where Miles or Pascal are picking. Let's now throw Nembhard or Nesmith or Shepherd up to be the picker. And then you've got the 2 bigs on the corners. So just some of the stuff that they do mid-game, it just the adjustments, and then they change plays all the time. And you're like, what in the world? Like, I've seen this, but I haven't seen this version of it. It's just like they've got constant like branches of different plays that they run. And it puts teams in such difficult positions, I think, defensively. Speaking of which, this is how smart those Pacers are, and what Rick Carlisle really preaches to is going after and attacking and exploiting weaknesses. Jalen Brunson is a weakness on defense, and he has been the screeners defender, 46 ball screens in this series, third most behind only the 2 starting centers. We can expect a lot of more of that, because they just know that if you're going to keep Brunson out there and Towns out there, we're going to run at them because they're horrible defensively. So that's something that Rick is very good at, exploiting teams' weaknesses. And that was key in this win. So a couple things to wrap this up, because it's been a great series so far. Miles Turner, I think we got to talk about him last, and I had him further up the rundown, but we should probably talk about him here. What a fourth quarter. 13 points in that fourth quarter. He and Siakam combined for 20 points together. Miles was the difference in that fourth quarter, I thought, to secure that 2-0 lead. And he'd struggled throughout the game. He came out of the game early in the first quarter. I don't know what happened to be. I have to go to the bathroom. I don't know. Like, the trainer didn't go back with him, so that makes you think that it was something that he knew he could handle himself. So whatever that was, he comes back out. He really was not much of a factor until the fourth quarter, where he was very, very good in that fourth. After the first 3 quarters, they saw 17 lead changes and 15 ties. Game was knotted at 81. And then in the final frame, that's when that run happened. And it was mostly Pascal and Miles picking him apart. Miles hit some really big shots. I can remember one off the glass that he made that usually is a very difficult shot, because he was his momentum was going towards the basket because he's running off like a pick and roll. And I think it was Tyrese that hits him. And he's going forward, but he releases it, and nice soft touch off the glass. And then he hits that huge 3 that I remember too. But Miles is, I mean, you love to see this. He had the biggest rebound, biggest play at the end of that game, getting that rebound and then hitting those big shots. It's exactly why we love Miles, and we want Miles to be a Pacer for life. Like, build the statue. He's somebody that I could see the Pacers putting his number up in the rafters when his time is done with the Indiana Pacers. And what a feat it would be for all the things that he's been. I almost get emotional talking about it, but what a thing it's been for somebody who's been through so much with this Pacers team, being in rumors for trades. And I don't know if there's anybody in my fandom that I've loved more than Miles Turner. Pacers dominating the transition game. In the first 2 games, the Pacers are in favor. They've only had they've had one less possession in transition than the Knicks, but the Pacers have 51 points in transition and the Knicks 26. What else? I think that's it as far as just the game 2 stuff. Game 3, some takeaways. Pacers got to get better against that offensive rebounding thing that happens with Mitchell Robinson. But at the end of the day, they've been ending games. The margin's not really noticeable in the rebound game, and I mean, they were out rebounded by 6, but as far as offensive glass, the Pacers actually were only 6 points behind the Knicks in second chance points, and actually outscored them in second chance points last game. They were great in the fast break, 14 points for the Pacers and 7 for the Knicks. So you kind of catch up in that area. And then points in the paint, Pacers have more points in the paint, 48 points compared to the Knicks, 44. But the Pacers were just the better team. And the biggest takeaways for me is got to get better offensive rebounds. You've got to win the Robinson-less minutes. That sounds crazy, but he's been honestly their second best player. I mean, you can obviously, right, Cat's scored a ton of points, but as far as the impact, I think besides Brunson, Robinson's been the next biggest impact. And that's not good for the Knicks because he doesn't score. And the Pacers were doing the hacker Robinson. The Tyrese fouled him. It was like 3 minutes left in the fourth. They fouled him and he misses one. Kind of took him out of the flow of their offense when the Pacers were going on a run, and then the Knicks tried to answer some, but then the Pacers foul him, and then the Pacers get it back up to like 8-10, which was brilliant by Carlisle. But yeah, next takeaway I'd say is that you and I said this in the first quarter, you're even at the end of the second half or first half, I said the Pacers have not been good. They've actually been pretty bad outside of Siakam, and they're still in this game. And the Knicks actually didn't play that poorly, and we're only 3 points ahead. I think when you look at this, at the end of the day, the Knicks have been the best that they can be in these first 2 games, and they've lost both of them. So they don't finish games well, and I think that has a lot to do with the Pacers just being able to continue to attack you for 48 minutes, where the Knicks are attacking you for 40 minutes because their starters are just gassed by the end of the game. And so much of that you put on Thibodeau because he just doesn't trust the bench. I mean, Campaign was a disaster off the bench. So then you're really limited. You're down to 7 players that you can kind of rely on, and Deuce and Mitchell. But now you're talking about putting Mitchell in there, and Josh Hart's not been very reliable in his time. So, I mean, they've been basically playing with 6 guys at points because of just the inconsistency of some of their players. And Mitchell Robinson isn't going to score a lot of points. Cat sat most of the fourth quarter. You go out and trade for this guy, right? And Mikal Bridges, and you go out and same thing with Cat. And I mean, your big acquisition, right? This would be like us sitting Siakam in the fourth quarter, being like, So I don't know. Like, you talk about the mentality of a player. I don't want to question his character. I think he's a nice guy, but he just lacks that toughness. And I think that was the problem in Minnesota too. I think that's why Minnesota was willing to kind of go, yeah, whatever. And I think it's working out for Minnesota. Like, Julius Randle and Dante they would have been way more impactful in this series, I think, than Cat is. Because while he can score, he cannot defend. And so it pretty much negates his effect, which I've always thought about him. Nice guy, very nice guy, but he can't defend. So his offensive powers are very limited, negated by what he does defensively. You got to have that same intensity. That's my last thing, is same intensity for game 3, right? That's ultimately what I want to take away, is that the Pacers have to match their intensity levels into those fourth quarters from game 1 and game 2 and take that home in front of a ruckus crowd that's going to be coming from a great weekend from Fever basketball, and also with the Indianapolis 500 coming back 2-0. Like, I want to see this game be a blowout. I think that'd be fun. But this is one of those games that the Pacers typically take the pedal or the foot off the gas. My last thing on the rundown says predictions. Well, tune into our next episode for the preview and prediction show. It'll help me remind you to listen to the next episode where we will be previewing the Pacers and Knicks game 3. And I think I'm going to go live on Sunday morning, kind of a pregame. And I know people will be kind of pre-gaming the Indianapolis 500, but I figured I'd get this episode out. This is the game 3 preview that is coming out on Sunday morning. I'll get up and do an early Sunday morning. Maybe I'll try to go live Sunday morning preview of Game 3, Pacers versus Knicks, heading back to Gainbridge Fieldhouse. But thanks for listening this far. If you've listened this far, we've really appreciated the support. This has been a lot of fun. And I actually have a friend that was texting me, Jordan, that I do a podcast with for MLS, and he was saying, "Man, what a first year you're on starting this podcast." Pacers are 2 wins away from the NBA Finals and make their first NBA Finals appearance since 2000, and possibly win their first NBA championship in their history. So, yeah, this has been a great start. I really enjoyed this. This has been a lot of fun this season, and I think we're in for a lot of fun seasons ahead, with all health being considered. I think that we've got a really good shot. This window is open and could be open for a very long time in the Eastern Conference, the way that it's looked. So really excited about that. Looking forward to Game 3 on Sunday. Again, that's 8 p.m. Eastern time on TNT. They will tip off the Indianapolis 500s at 12:45, I believe, when that starts. So the flag will raise, and then we'll get going. Pregame that tomorrow morning, so that way I can get that up on the feed. So that way, if you're going to the Indianapolis 500, you can listen to that on your commute or whatever that might be, or you're pre-gaming for the game, or you're not watching the Indy 500, so you're looking for something to listen to for the hours leading up. These games start at 8. These are brutal, but there's some final games that I think start at 8:30 or 9 because of OKC. So that'll be brutal if we'll have to wait for those games, because we just I end up pacing the house. I actually cleaned the whole house yesterday because I was just like, come on, let's get this game going. So yeah, thanks for listening this far. We really appreciate it. We are at the Pacer Fever Show on YouTube. You can find us there. Comment, like, subscribe. We're on anywhere you can get podcast, Apple, Spotify. Make sure to rate the show, give us 5 stars, thumbs up, whatever it might be. Helps people find us. We really like interacting with the Pacers community, and it's growing. And we've got some really good podcasts in the network that I enjoy listening to as well. I'm looking forward to getting some of them on maybe next season to talk about the Pacers. Maybe that break in between the NBA Finals, I'll reach out to somebody, see if we can get somebody on the show. Talk Pacers if we get to the NBA Finals, or maybe if we get knocked out, which would be really devastating. Can have somebody on, and we'll keep up with the show in the off season. We'll make a lot of good content in the off season as well. But we're covering Indiana Fever, so make sure to tune into those. They're playing right now against the New York Liberty, which is a really good team, WNBA champions in 2024. But what a great time to be a sports fan in Indianapolis. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy Memorial Day. We will catch you again tomorrow morning, Sunday, May 25th, before all the excitement happens tomorrow with the Indy 500 and the Pacers playing. We are at the Pacer Fever Show on all socials too. You can send me a message. Still looking for co-host for the Pacer side or Fever side or both. So if you're interested, shoot me a message. Again, thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed, and let's go Pacers. Let's finish this series off at home. Let's knock out those evil New York Knicks.